Why Data's head is severed in Star Trek: The Next Generation's Time's Arrow. Few moments in Star Trek: The Next Generation are as jarring, intriguing, and emblematic of the franchise's bold storytelling as the two-part season finale and premiere Time's Arrow. The image of Lieutenant Commander Data's long-buried, centuries-old severed head is among the series' most iconic visuals. It's not just the sheer strangeness of finding a 500-year-old android skull under San Francisco, but the weight of the philosophical, emotional, and temporal implications that make this episode a standout. But why was Data's head severed in Time's Arrow? What purpose did this bizarre twist serve narratively, thematically, and scientifically in the Star Trek universe? The answer is multifaceted, rooted in time travel paradoxes, existential questions, and the very heart of what it means to be a synthetic lifeform among mortals. Let's delve into this landmark episode, exploring the narrative construction, character dynamics, science fiction underpinnings, and the deeper meanings hidden behind the moment Data loses his head, quite literally. A head in a cave and a mystery across time. Time's Arrow begins with a startling archaeological find on Earth, a buried cavern containing the severed head of an android that matches the design of Commander Data. Through forensic and technical analysis, the Starfleet officers of the 24th century determined that the head is over 500 years old, placing it in Earth's 19th century. The revelation sends shockwaves through the Enterprise crew, especially Data, who processes the event with his usual blend of calm rationality and subtle curiosity. This shocking discovery sets in motion a time travel storyline in which members of the Enterprise crew, including Picard, Guinan, Riker, and Crusher, eventually journey back to 1893 San Francisco. Their mission? To stop a race of energy-feeding aliens called the Davidians who are preying on dying humans during a cholera epidemic. But for Data, this journey becomes more than a mission. It's a predestined confrontation with his own future and death. The closed time loop and inevitable fate. The concept of a closed time loop is central to Time's Arrow. The events of the story fulfill themselves. Data's head is found in the 24th century because he was destined to travel back to the 19th century and lose it. The crew's knowledge of that head leads them to initiate the very mission that causes the event in the first place. This creates a deterministic loop. The past and future are intrinsically linked. The future is not something to be rewritten but lived into. Star Trek has toyed with many models of time travel: divergent timelines, fixed points, causality loops, and Time's Arrow leans into the latter. It poses a haunting question. If you knew your death was inevitable, would you still go through with your actions to fulfill your duty? Data doesn't shy away. Instead, he accepts the path. He doesn't fight to avoid the outcome. In doing so, Time's Arrow elevates Data's character from brilliant machine to philosophical hero. Why severing the head was necessary from a plot perspective. From a storytelling standpoint, severing Data's head solves several narrative problems and introduces rich science fiction possibilities. 1. Creating a mystery. The head's discovery acts as a narrative hook, an ancient relic from the future. It instantly creates tension. Viewers are drawn in, eager to understand how an android's head ended up in 19th century Earth. The writers effectively use this artifact to drive the story forward while keeping the audience invested in unraveling the mystery. 2. Proving the stakes are real. Star Trek sometimes gets criticized for hitting the reset button at the end of episodes. Time's Arrow avoids this by letting the consequences of time travel linger. Data's head remains in the 24th century, eventually becoming the one attached to his body after the events of the past. The past and present aren't reset, they're integrated. The head becomes a lasting symbol of the story's impact. 3. Highlighting Data's uniqueness. Data is one of the few characters who could survive a 500-year burial. His artificial nature means that decay, time, and death do not affect him in the same way they do humans. In this way, the head becomes a narrative device that could only have worked with an android character. This moment would have been impossible with Riker, Worf, or even Picard. It had to be Data. 4. Foreshadowing greater themes of mortality. The story sets up a contrast between Data's perceived immortality and the fragility of the human condition. Yet by being decapitated and buried, Data experiences his own version of death, forced disconnection, stasis, and eventual reactivation centuries later. The writers give Data a form of mortality unique to his nature. A philosophical puzzle, Data and the nature of self. Time's Arrow also raises profound philosophical questions about consciousness and identity. When Data loses his head, it is treated not as the death of a being, but the storage of a machine. However, Star Trek has long championed the idea that Data is more than the sum of his circuits. He is sentient. He feels curiosity, loyalty, and even a kind of affection. So, when his head is severed and buried, is that not a kind of death? Moreover, when his body is rejoined with the head at the end of the episode, is Data the same Data? Or has something been lost in the passage of time? These are questions that echo classic philosophical dilemmas about the ship of Theseus. If you replace a being's components over time, is it still the same person? By severing Data's head, the writers give fans more than a sci-fi shock. They invite them to contemplate the nature of identity. The disconnection between head and body symbolizes more than a physical split. It suggests a metaphysical gap, a liminal space between life and death, consciousness and dormancy, past and future. Guinan's crucial role, a link across time. A key character in Time's Arrow is Guinan, who we learn met Picard in the 19th century long before their 24th century relationship. Her presence solidifies the loop, reinforcing that time is not linear but circular. Guinan knows she must remain vague about what happened because the past has already occurred from her perspective, but not yet for Picard. Her role emphasizes the episode's theme of time as an interconnected web rather than a sequence of events. Guinan's ability to perceive these timelines suggests that fate and free will coexist in a strange harmony. She doesn't tell Picard about his future because she trusts him to walk the path that fulfills it. Similarly, she doesn't try to stop Data from his journey, even knowing it ends with his decapitation. In this way, Guinan functions as a guide, not just for the characters, but for the audience, nudging us toward understanding the deeper implications of time and sacrifice. Data's heroism, facing inevitable death. Ultimately, Data's decision to go into the past knowing he will be separated from his body for 5 centuries is a heroic one. It mirrors the kind of courage that defines Starfleet officers, not the bravery of facing combat, but the quiet dignity of accepting sacrifice for the greater good. By choosing to follow through with the events that lead to his head's burial, Data ensures the survival of countless 19th century humans and prevents the Davidians from continuing their harvest. He also allows the timeline to play out correctly, protecting not only the past but the present. What's especially moving is how Data,